Welcome to Business Talk Radio and virtual Zoom, of course, today. Chris Lippincott, the Montclair Medium, joins us once again. How are you doing today?
Hey, Jill, how you doing? Great to be here.
I'm doing great. Good to see you here live and in person as well as on
Yeah.
the radio. And you must introduce yourself for us, please.
Sure. Well, I'm Chris Lippincott. I'm a psychic medium and best-selling author. And one of the things I love to do is really help people reunite with their loved ones in spirit. It's such a joy to actually see people get together virtually, if you will, with their spirit loved ones. It's so heartwarming, and that's kind of one of the reasons I do it, is because it's just the love. It's a transformative love and healing that you really get to experience as people get back together with their loved ones again.
Well, it's awesome. It's fascinating. And we look forward to your conversations each and every week. And today, I know we want to talk a little bit about the transition to the other side. Do you know what that's like? Do spirits describe to you what it's actually like to transition to the other side?
Yeah, they've on occasion they've mentioned it to me. It's been well documented with a lot of automatic writings over the last 150 years, even further. And of course, there are a lot of near-death experiences that come through as well, saying the exact same types of things and the exact same experiences. Most often, what we hear from spirit is, first and foremost, every transition is different for every person. Based on where they're coming from, based on their belief system, based on their personal state of mind at the time, and also based on the cause of passing. Is it a traumatic passing? Is it passing in their sleep? So there are a number of different dynamics that all will play into it as different factors. But one of the things that is most common is it's always painless. There's never any pain. There's never anything physically felt when the person transitions, regardless of what the circumstance is. And if anything, there's this feeling of sudden freedom where the person feels like they're literally shedding, if you'll excuse the phrase, dead weight. It's like, they're shedding the raincoat, and they're finally allowing themselves to be free and start to float. And the common description is that they're floating above their body. They definitely see that their physical shell of a body is below them. And as they're floating above, they're seeing themselves, but they're also cognizant that there's something about them. They feel quite often like they're in a dream. And that's the tricky part, because many times people who are transitioning, if depending on their belief, which is what I was referring to before, they may think they're in a dream and they may not believe that they're actually passing. And so it takes hand holding on the other side to bring them through into the light, to say, yes, this is real. Yes, you are actually passed. You actually have passed into the spirit world. Because in some cases, you'll get people who are so adamant that, it's dust to dust and I'm not going to go into spirit.
Yeah.
They don't really believe it. In some cases, it's not so much that they get trapped, it's just that they aren't allowing their spirit to rise into the high vibration and get into the light. So it becomes a question of, are they going to accept the light or not accept the light? But more often than not, with the encouragement of people who are dedicated and well trained to pull them into the spirit world, as well as much of their tribe, as it were, their family in spirit, who meets and greets them, and they also pull them in. That's how they start to move into the light, and that's how they move into the spirit world.
Wait, but there are some times where you deny the light, you don't want to go, or
It's
they
not
really
so
pull
much
you.
that
I mean, because you hear the stories about people saying they have near life death experiences, and I was hovering over my body at the hospital and I saw them working on me, but I came back. Was that like a soul or spirit fighting not to leave, or that was just not his
no, if
time?
anything,
What is that?
if anything, what you often hear from near-death experiences is just the opposite. They don't want to come back because
Oh.
they're having this most beautiful experience. It is so much happier and loving and more vibrant and more colorful and more exuberant when they are leaving their body and they're feeling this close love, they're feeling this immense, unconditional, overpowering, all-encompassing love, that they don't want to come back. And furthermore, they're realizing, hey, this is not the physical. I don't have to deal with all this pain. I don't have to deal with all the garbage that's going on back in the earth plane. Why do I want to go back? So more often than not, you'll see people get quite upset when they have to come back, or somebody says it's not your time. You always hear that phrase.
Yeah.
And they're quite often upset when they come back. And there are sometimes where people who have been at a near-death experience are given the choice. Do you want to go back, or do you want to stay here? And many times you'll hear the person who's gone through the NDE say, I'm very concerned about my family. How are they going to live without me? Or I want to watch my children grow up, or I've got unfinished business. So in that case, they'll go back.
Wow.
So, and it's what's also very interesting is during the transition, and you hear this also about with NDEs, the classic, they go through a portal, there's a tunnel of light, and at the end there's this bright light. In many cases, what Spirit has been trying to suggest to us is that, in fact, what a spirit person who's transitioning, or perhaps a person who's going into the light but still an NDE, it's actually passing through the first plane, the first sphere, as it were, which is actually a sphere that is quite often referred to as the Shadowlands, where there's not a lot of light, where there's not a lot of love. And so the theory goes that in many cases, there's literally a tunnel where you can't see on the other side. You can't see what's on the other side of the first sphere, because if you did, you'd probably be too worried, too upset. So you're just going to go straight to maybe the third sphere, which is more like the Earth sphere. It's very, it looks like it in every way. So you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm still alive. And that's why in many cases, people who have just transitioned are confused. They're like, wait a second, this looks exactly like what it used to look like on Earth. Same buildings, same colors, same trees, everything's the same. What happened here? I'm very confused.
I'm confused, but that's it's supposed to be confusing for the normal person, I guess, who doesn't. It's just so hard to conceptualize, because I'm starting to believe that, like, the spirits, the afterlife is just around us. So are they really seeing the same buildings that we're seeing, but in a different form?
No, that's a great question, though. But essentially what's happening is that if you want to go back to the structure of the spirit world, there are 7 spheres, very similar to there being 7 energy bodies,
7
very
chakras.
similar
Okay.
to being 7 chakras. So the number 7 keeps repeating. We keep on seeing the same thing over and over again. And they all have to do with successively higher vibration rates.
Okay.
Whether it's regarding chakras, energy bodies, or spheres, every one that's successively higher is at a higher vibration rate. But the analogy I always use is it's very much like Russian nesting dolls, where one is inside the other.
And they keep coming out, and they
keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
I have to read your book. That's it. I would understand more if I read the book, right?
There you go. You got to read the book.
Or listen to it. Thank you. Yeah.
What's that for a plug? Read the book.
By the way, exactly. What book is it?
Yes. It's Spirits Beside Us Gain Comfort and Healing from Loved Ones in the Afterlife. And it really goes into detail, but everything we're talking about goes into the spirit world, goes into how the spirits are acting, what they're doing. Also goes into my, entry into mediumship, totally unexpected. Didn't really think I was going to come this direction, full circle, but nonetheless, it's very detailed.
All right. Well, speaking of the book, I'm sure you discuss afterlife in the book. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? What exactly is it like to be in the afterlife? And has Spirit actually described to you, like, personally, how it's structured? And do they have, like, a government? Is there any, like, governing principles that they must live by? Are they voting right now too soon? How does it work?
Lucky for them, they don't have a voting system, so I think they've gotten over that somehow. I don't think
Good,
they don't have any mail-in ballots to worry about.
good, good.
But as far as the structure goes for the spirit world, it's really again about the 7 spheres, and every sphere is successively higher in vibration, successively brighter, successively more loving, successively a lighter energy, if you will. And one of the things I'm always talking about is, you know, we're trying to raise our vibration, we're trying to raise our light. And if you raise your vibration, you raise your light, then the light that you see that's one level higher is not quite as glaring. So if you get to a higher light, you're more comfortable with that light. So one of the things that's very important within the spirit world and the entire structure is that you're only going to be able to be at that sphere, that level, that you're comfortable with being on that specific vibration. You can't go any higher unless your light and vibration is at that level. So
Okay.
let's say, for example, you're on level 3 and you were comfortable at level 3, but you haven't been able to have your vibration rate or your light intensity, for lack of a better phrase, um, improve that much
Brighter.
brighter to get to level 4. Otherwise, you try to go to level 4 and it's so bright. You know, when you walk into a room and like the light is just like so bright, you're like, oh, I can't stand it. You got to go back out and you leave the room. It's exactly the same thing. It's
Okay.
not like they're saying, stop, you can't come here. It's more of your own volition. You're like, ah, it's so bright. Wow. And you just, you know, the vibration's too out of whack, the light's too out of whack, and you just don't want to go there. So you go back. But every level is higher and higher vibration. Every level is brighter and brighter light, more intense light. And the vibration, the higher the vibration, the higher the state of love, the more unconditional love you get, to the point where you're finally at the 7th level, at which point you then get to the celestial level, which is where you're getting all the higher beings, you know, the ascended masters, you know, anyone from, you know, Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad to all the, you know, the great saints that, you know, would be up in the celestial realms.
So does everybody have a chance to increase that level? I mean,
Yeah,
is it a matter of
that's the thing.
time of
It's a little
learning
bit.
or not every spirit will actually make it up that ladder, and it's okay that they're okay at level 3 in a sense, or
Yeah, it's really all about personal. I mean, everyone's heard of a spiritual growth, spiritual
yeah,
development, and we're even doing it, you know, in the here in the physical.
yeah,
We're all learning. It's the same thing in the spirit realms. You're really trying to learn. You're trying to grow. It's all about spiritual growth. And the more that you grow spiritually, the more that you're actually increasing your vibration rate. Because if you remember, we're all energy,
yeah,
spirit's
okay,
energy. We're all trying to increase our vibration rates. And so by increasing our vibration rates, by increasing our love energy, we're thereby increasing our energy and able to increase up to different levels. And it's all about a path. It's a path of learning. Some, you know, paths are based on scientific learning, knowledge, what have you, and they'll follow a certain path, like levels 2, 4, and 6.
hmm
Others are more the path of divine love, which would be, you know, more like levels 2, 4, 6, and 7. And you know, you've got everything's got a specific path.
okay. And what are they doing? So what does spirit actually do in afterlife? You know, you hear about them all sitting there playing harps like in the movies. Is that not true? I'm assuming that is just not true.
um,
What do they do?
yeah, they're definitely not just hanging out. In
They're not
fact, there's
working
plenty.
technically.
They're definitely working.
Okay.
In fact, I was giving a reading to a woman who had lost both of her boys, her teenagers. Actually, one was a teenager, one was a young adult. Um, you know, heart wrenching story. And I'm doing the reading. I'm bringing both of the boys through, and they both have this like dry sense of humor, really kind of, you know, acerbic sense of humor. Um, and all of a sudden, the older young adult comes through and goes, what do you think? We're sitting up here eating bonbons and playing harps? I'm like, I literally had to like develop it like that. Like, here's what he's saying, and she's like, yeah, that's exactly what he would
That's what
say.
he would say.
So yeah, they're not up there just kind of like, wasting time. They're actually being very active. They're learning things like I was mentioning. Or they're expanding their knowledge base. They're expanding their science base. In fact, many times, many of the inventions or the aha moments that scientists get, or the miraculous discoveries that humankind gets, will be inspired by spirit. Likewise with music. I mean, just think of like, Mozart or Beethoven. They're all like these incredible minds. At the age of 8 years old, they're coming up with these incredible symphonies. What kind of
Wow.
8-year-old do you know that comes up with like this incredible symphony?
Yeah.
It's spiritually inspired, and quite often you'll have these spiritual inspirations of science, of music, of humanity, of culture, and it's all coming in from things that they've learned as they expand their knowledge base.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. And you just mentioned like that story about that woman and her two sons, unfortunately, that passed, but you were able to bring them through. And like, for example, right now, because the look on your face, you were so like in tune with them and you remember and you can like feel what, how they made you feel at the time. If you wanted to bring them back right now, could you? And like talk to them? Or you're focusing on the interview, you can't think about them right
Because I'm focusing on you,
now. Okay.
I probably couldn't. But if I get
Are they
into
knocking right now because you mentioned them? Like in your, do you hear them? Or
no, that's more of a memory for me.
okay, okay, so it's all right. So you're normal
So,
like us, you have
but
memories. Okay.
it takes me a few minutes to get my mind in a place where I can connect with spirit. It's
Got
very
it.
much like
Okay.
when I go into trance. What
All
I'll
right.
do is I'll literally allow my logical mind, my rational mind to step aside,
Yeah.
and I'm increasing my vibration rate and stepping into an alternate reality and allowing spirit to merge with me so that my energy is here. I'm raising my vibration rate and spirit is coming and we're merging, our energies. And so that way, we
Mhm.
can communicate with each other. Because if I'm just sitting here talking to you and we're going back and forth, my mind's not up there, my mind's with you. At
Okay, got it.
least
Just
it better be with
all
you.
right. Thank you. All right. We talked a little about your book already. Let's continue to talk some more. You mentioned that your loved ones in spirit kind of, well, they still really see us and they interact with us. Can you explain how that's possible and what they do?
Yeah, what's so interesting is that they're always involved with us. They're of course they're doing their own thing. They're learning, they're expanding, they're growing on the other side. But they're often, if you will, I guess probably the best way to use the phrase is they're keeping one eye on us. They're always able to look at us because spirit is. If you go back to this conversation we were having about the different levels and about the intensity of light, you know, they may not necessarily be able to go higher than their level, but they can always go down below where their level is,
Oh, okay.
because it's like we can look into the dark and we're not going to experience discomfort. But if
Got
we look into a
it. If it's
bright
too
light,
bright, it
we're going to experience discomfort
okay.
and turn away. So what spirit essentially is doing is looking down into a space, if you will, it's not as intense because we here in the physical plane are not as intense. So they can easily
Okay.
look at us, see us, experience us. And again, they're at that level where it's just an alternate reality. It's an alternate dimension. They're essentially sharing the same space. So they can see into our existence. They can experience us and know us. And quite often, when I'm doing a reading, for example, I'll be asking spirit loved ones, so give me a proof of survival. Show me something. Give me an example of a time where you've experienced something after your passing, and you can show this to me, and I'll pass it to the person who's in the reading.
Ooh.
And every single time I ask that, they come back and they give me something. Like just yesterday, um, there was a husband who had passed recently, and I had asked him that question, and he came back with a picture of a car. The woman's driving. He's got. He shows me two daughters. The woman goes, "Yes, that's right. I've got two daughters, and two daughters are in the back seat." and I was seeing a birthday cake. So there's something about the woman driving in a car with two daughters and her birthday cake, and she's like, yes, it was last week was his birthday, and we were just in the car talking about him.
Oh my God, I'm
And so
crying.
he's like coming back and like showing me all this. And there was another time I might
Did
have
you
mentioned.
cry too? Like, I'm crying right now. That's awesome. That's,
Yeah,
wow.
and they come back, and there was another time where there's a different man who came through who showed me his memorial service and described everything about the church and the fact that, you know, the church was packed and there were people outside and what it looked like and where everything was. And I'm describing this. And the wife's like, yes, yes, oh my God, describe this, what the service was like. And so
Oh,
they'll often show me like these remote viewings, say, yeah, look, I'm still here. This is what's happening. And they'll come back and they'll let us know what they're doing.
wow. So they really do interact with us, and that must make everyone feel so much better. It does.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, and here's the other thing. It's like quite often they also come back and they'll uh, let us know that they're interacting with us by giving a feeling where they're working with our energy. You know, just recently, a couple days ago, there was a woman who I said, your husband is coming through and let me know that sometimes he's like, he wants to pull up the comforter on your bed. And the woman paused and goes, yeah, I have seen my comforter move sometimes. And I said, yes, and he's been on the right side of your bed. You've been on the left side, and he's come up to you and held your arm, and you would have felt that energy as he holds you. And she's like, yes, I felt his energy on my left-hand side.
oh,
And
wow.
it just comes again and again and again and again. They keep on doing this. So it's very clear that they're coming through and letting us know that they are, without a doubt, with us.
Good. And you also describe in your book that spirit guides kind of help us in our life down here on earth. And what are spirit guides, if you don't mind, getting into that again, and tell us exactly what they do.
Sure. Spirit guides are, if you want to think of it this way, as a more evolved spirit person. They're no different than us, if you will. They're just that much farther advanced. They're that much farther along the spiritual path. They've lived many more lives. They've grown that much farther, but they've learned so much and they've become so dedicated that they want to help mankind, other people, and they've then gone to detailed training for long periods of time to learn how can they help people, and then they learn once they've, I don't know if you want to call it a spirit guide school or what you
Okay.
want to call it. But they essentially, after all the training and all this growth, they will come through, and work with one person. So we each have a spirit guide.
So just one.
We have one, I'll refer to one main guide,
Okay.
basically the orchestrator, the director of the
Uh-huh.
team. We all have a team of guides. We all have a band of 7
Okay.
inner
Now,
guides, inner circle, and the
and it
one
doesn't have
main
to be
guide.
someone that we know. It doesn't have to be a family member. It doesn't have to
Not
be
at all.
anything like that.
Usually it's not.
Usually
Usually
it's
it's
not.
not.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Because if you remember our spirit family, we all travel in packs.
Clusters. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we're all going to be going in different, groups over, maybe 150 years, if you will. Spirit guides are traveling over longer periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that one main guide as the director of a band of 7 inner guides. And then on the outer band, the outer circle, if you will, you think of them as specialty guys, specialty
Okay.
contractors.
Got
Let's
it.
say you need help with a job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there might be a guide that comes in who just knows how to help people with jobs, and they come in and they help you with that. But
Okay.
it's really all about a guide comes with you as you incarnate In fact, they work with you on your soul plan before you incarnate. So they help you with your advisors, and think of it as college. If you remember, we all had like advisors for college, and
Gap
you know,
learning.
go talk to your advisor.
Uh-huh.
They're like your advisors, only they're your life plan advisors instead of just for 4 years. This is your entire life they're working with.
Wow.
And
And
more often than not, we ignore them.
yeah, well,
You know, we're
can
just
you
like,
just tell us quickly? I'm sorry, we're getting close to the end, but can you just let us know how can we get closer to loved ones in spirit? Is there anything special that we should be doing here?
how can we get closer to spirit? Definitely, I'd say one of the most important things is to realize first off that we're spirit. Think of ourselves as spirit. As we begin to realize that we're spirit, then you begin to realize that we are that much closer to spirit, and we can elevate ourselves and our vibration, and start thinking about your loved ones as energy, just like we're energy.
Mm-hmm.
If you begin to think that we're energy and their energy, that we're actually closer than we actually realize, and that they're actually with us just in an alternate reality, sharing the same space, different dimension. And you can go on to quantum physics and figure, and we can go on all day about that. But then just talk about how much closer we truly are, and the knowledge that we're all together. And it's the love that creates that cement, that bond, that never-ending connection.
So we should be talking to our loved ones and our spirit. Does that bring them closer in a sense?
Absolutely, because they hear what we say, they feel what we feel, they know what's inside of us, because it's all energy, and it's the energy that creates the telepathy, creates the communication, creates the ability to interchange and exchange feelings and emotions and thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and that way they'll hear us, they'll feel us, they'll know us,
Oh,
and we can communicate with them.
great. And at this time of the show, we have to say goodbye. I want to talk a little more. Hopefully, next time we'll get more info on spirits from you. But in closing, give us your best form of contact information, please, and how we
Sure.
can get in touch with you to book a reading. And there's so many things on your website. So talk about that. What's on your website
Sure.
for us, and
Sure.
what can you do for us?
Right. The fastest way probably is if you want to call me. My phone number is 201-578-6020, or you can email me at chris at montclairmedium.com, or you can look at my website at www.montclairmedium.com.
Great. And usually, how long is a session? Just curious.
Yeah, you can sign up for either a 30-minute session or a 1-hour session. And these days it's typically done on Zoom,
Okay.
which is really easy. And it's the virtual conference room. In fact, it's so easy, you don't have to leave your house.
That's awesome. So you right now you could be like in pajama pants, waist down, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
you can be in
know.
your
Same
pajamas and
here.
with a cup of coffee.
Exactly. All right. Well, Chris, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to also check out his book. Don't forget it's on Amazon. And also want to point out you're writing another book. We'll talk about that next time, okay? Because the
Absolutely.
spirits have contacted you and said it's time.
It is. They're hitting me
All
over the
right.
head.
MontclairMedium.com. Chris, always a pleasure. Really, I'm excited to talk to you
Likewise.
every week, okay? Have a
Love
great
it.
day. And everyone who's listening on the radio, stay tuned. We have more Business Talk Radio coming up after the break.